Hey, 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 and welcome to Rock the Crown.
All right.
What's up, Crown Nation? Welcome to season 6, episode 2. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited, So, we are getting into it this season. Okay, we started off last week with Love on the Rocks and how to get back to the shore. And this week, we are starting all the way from the top, okay? And this juicy topic is about standing by your man. Right? We always hear these things, talk about stand by your man, but how to support your spouse without losing your own dreams and aspirations. How do we do that as women? And of course, we always have all of these people who are always trying to tell the women what they need to be doing, right? But we're now going to be trying to give some advice to our own ladies on what we should be doing for ourselves without, quote unquote, making us feel like we can't be empowered. Okay, so let's start it off. Of course, I have my queens with me, Nefertari and Daia.
Hey, ladies.
What's up, ladies?
Hey.
Oh, welcome, everyone. It's so good to be back here on Rock the Crown for season 6. So we came up with this juicy topic. It's really just girl talk. This is just girls talk. We're just talking amongst ourselves, and really what happens a lot of times in relationships is that a lot of women, because women are, by nature, we're nurturers. And so we always want to, help. And sometimes we overextend ourselves. We help more than we really can and than we really should. And so a lot of times that happens in a relationship, in a marriage. And so what we want to talk about today is how we can still help our husbands, still help our spouses, but at the same time, maintain our own identity, go for our own dreams, shoot for the stars, and just really, go for our own aspirations. So what we did is we came up with a few different scenarios. These are all fictional characters, all made up, made up names, made up scenarios, just thinking about things that, we maybe have encountered or things that, kind of go on in a relationship that can cause a woman to lose her individuality. So we're just going to go through. We got 4 examples of couples that we're going to just go through, and we're just going to talk about it. If you have some comments you want to share, you agree, or disagree, feel free to put that in the comments for us. And again, this is all fictional. There's some of the, it may sound similar to a situation that you've been in or I've been in, so it's just something that we just want to kind of talk about. And another thing I want to mention.
I've been in.
Another thing is that, the first piece of advice that we give is to ourselves, so as we're, on here and we're giving our girlfriend advice, this also definitely applies to any of us as well. It can. So who's going to take the first one? So the first, is that me?
Yeah, girl.
So the first marriage example, once I can get to it. Okay. So relationship example number 1 is Sister Jamila and Brother Nasir. They are a young couple. They were both 19 when they got married and had their first child the following year. Nasir has a big dream and goals of being a successful business owner. Jamila once dreamed of becoming a lawyer, but feels compelled to help her husband reach his goals. She begins to conduct research, make phone calls, work tirelessly to help her husband while putting her aspirations and dreams on hold. Ladies, what's some of your advice that you may have for our young sister, Jamila?
That's a juicy one. That's a
right. Is she getting paid for that tireless work?
Tirelessly. You know the answer to that.
I was getting ready to say, we all know the answer to that. Mm-hmm.
I think that sometimes, like when you're young, like when you're that young, and of course you already have a child, and you're less than 5 years into the marriage, what happens is, because we really haven't done a great job of really teaching our young women that there's a difference between raising your children and working in the society here in America versus other countries. and how the example of the wives of the Prophet were working women. They worked. Okay. And sometimes we have a tendency to really kind of fall into this ideal of what I like to say, the white America, where the white man wants his wife at home. He doesn't want her to be educated. He wants her to cook and clean. And that's where all of those commercials for like refrigerators and stoves and all of that stuff came from. And sometimes what we do as Muslims is we're like, oh, yeah, women, because they stay at home or should stay at home, they need to be cooking and cleaning and making all the meals and things like that. And so what I think that has happened here in America is that we've kind of like intertwined the concept of what white men wanted for their white women, what we think Islam is saying for women in America, and then a woman's goals and aspirations are like, you're only a real good wife if you support your husband's dreams. And you should only, as long as you support him, as long as you're as long as you're submissive to him, then you're doing a good job. But we really haven't read all of the examples of the wives of the Prophet. May Allah be pleased with all of them, as well as all of the business women and the Sahabiyat, women in Islam that really actually worked, supported the community, and did really, really, really political things as well as move forward. So it's kind of like, Jamila girl, don't put your stuff on hold, because again, we also know as women, you'll look up, you'll be 40, 50 years old and you haven't accomplished anything because you're so focused on making sure that they've done what they want to do.
Yeah, Naima, I was just going to add to that, it's really important, like you said, with them being a young couple. And I would say I would consider myself a seasoned person when it comes to relationships. And just in hindsight, looking back at certain things, the advice I definitely would give is maybe putting a timeline on it. It's like sometimes we find ourselves as wives and mothers that, because we're naturally nurturers, that we put a lot of things before ourselves. And sometimes taking care of other people really does mean taking care of yourself first in order to be able to do that. So I would say if she, to give her advice to say, okay, if you're going to be supportive of your husband, like you said, she's doing this research, spending these hours, making these phone calls and doing certain things. Because a lot of times, our men do need our support in that area. I think that that's a good thing to be able to do that, but don't lose yourself while doing that. Still continue, even if you're taking smaller baby steps on your dreams and goals, but you're still advancing in some pace. Keeping that vision, keeping that mindset, because sometimes if you just let it all the way go away, it's hard to get it back, like you said, and you'll look up 5-10 years later and this man, if woulda, coulda, shoulda, if I would have did this and I should have did that. And a lot of times, and then we'll just be mad at ourselves that we didn't get to do, these specific things. And so I would say support your husband, and do it in good spirit and good faith. And, pray on it, seek Allah's guidance on how to do whatever it is that you're doing, but just don't lose yourself and make sure that you give it a timeline, by this time, if it's 2-year span, if it's a 2-year span and you say, we're going to do, this is what the goals are, set it up. And then maybe talk to them about, okay, I'm going to help you develop and reach this certain point. And then, we're going to look at my thing, and we're going to try to see where we can go from there, where they can be able to help each other. And feel like
that's exactly what I was going to say, Neff, was that, a lot of times as women, and some of the fault is on ourselves because we don't ask for help. We don't show that we need help. So, what I would also advise Jamila is to think of some ways that her husband can help her. If she does want to return to school, then, say, okay, if I'm giving you 5 hours, or 20 hours a week, I also need, for you to be with our son, during this time, so just find some ways that he can also support her and start that off early in a marriage. Like a lot of times as women, we first get married and we want to be everything. We want to be Susie homemaker. We want to bake. Right. We want to, dress up. We want to do it all. And then after a while we get burnt out and it's like, hey, I need your help. but you were doing it in the beginning. So you've already kind of
make
set
it
this.
look so easy.
Right. You just do it, so yeah, so I would say that definitely women, reach out and let people know how they can help you, find ways that people can help you. And a lot of times it's a bit of a difficult thing for some of us to ask for help, but find ways to also, delegate some of your tasks, to your spouse. That's a great way to do it as well.
And don't forget that she's still growing and changing as a woman. And so what you're going to be doing in your 20s is different than your 30s. It's different than your 40s, and it's different than your 50s. And so realizing that those aspirations may also change, and you should be willing to make that adjustment for yourself also.
Yeah, very good point.
All right.
Move on.
To relationship example number 2. Okay, we're gonna talk a little bit about Hasina and Akbar. Okay, so both of them, they're a little bit older. They're in their 40s. This is their second time for marriage. Second time around for both of them. Hasina, she's a business development manager, and she makes 6 figures. And then Akbar, he's self-employed, and he's a plumbing contractor. So he's been in business for several years, but he just can't seem to get his business off the ground. So there's like this huge disparity between the 2 incomes. So Hasina, she feels like she needs to play it small. Like she doesn't want to make her husband feel a certain way. She's making more money. So she foregoes a lot of things. She just, her annual trips that she usually takes with her sorority sisters. And, she limits her shopping sprees because she doesn't want to make him feel inadequate. So she often hides the amount of money that she makes, and she secretly deposits funds into her husband's account to help him make ends meet. When she feels like it's just not, he's not gonna make it. Let me help him out. So she's secretly doing that, and then Hasina, she also sacrifices a lot to make her husband feel good. So, what's your advice, ladies? Is she being noble by doing this?
It's generosity of a woman. It's a beautiful thing, and I just really applaud her for, the way that she's caring for her husband's pride and ego, which they do have. We all have, and I think that a lot of times we don't want our men to feel small. So, a lot of women wouldn't go this route. A lot of women would, just throw in their face, hey, this is my money. I can do what I want with my money. And you're the man and you're supposed to be the provider. So I think that in a lot of ways, she is, helping to support her husband, but even without him knowing. I think that's an interesting thing, like, for you to deposit some money to help out, with the bills, because some men, they will refuse, to take money from their wives because they do, just feel 100% responsible to be that protector and maintainer of their wife. And, men are responsible to maintain, according to their means. But also when you marry a woman, you also want to consider what her standards are, because, she would not be happy, if she's, once she marries you, now she has to lower her standards, and she has to live in a certain way that she's not, not used to, not comfortable. So I have to applaud her. I like what she's doing. I just wonder how long she'll be able to keep it up, because I know for me, for going one of my trips, that's going to be hard. That's going to be very difficult to do. So I just wonder how long she can keep it up. That's the thing, is how long can you keep up this, facade,
Yeah, like you said, it's like, don't start nothing you can't finish, right? I think she should still take her trips, but you can take some trips where it's just y'all, and you were like, hey, hubby, this is a gift that I'm giving for us. You're such a hard worker. You're trying for this and that, and I just want to be able to do this. Huh?
If he'll go, because like men don't want to take the money, they don't want to take the trip either. So they're like, no, I'm not going on a trip.
Well, then if he doesn't want to go, that don't mean she's not gonna go. So she's still gonna take her trip. And then when she get back, he might be like, oh, next time I think I want to go. So, it might be one of those numbers. But I would say she shouldn't necessarily put it on hold. You don't want to just kind of overdo it, but we kind of go back to don't lose yourself. If this is a part of you and what you do, and especially if it was something that you were doing before. I know sometimes we have to give in and give up on certain things and kind of meet each other in the middle, so to speak. But, you know, you want to make sure you still continue your relationship with your friends and things on the outside of, you know, the relationship while you're still building within your marriage. So, and that's a part of it with the travel thing, I think.
And I kind of want to talk about some of the language that was used in this example. So, like, it said that she often hides the amount of money that she makes. Well, women don't have to disclose the amount of money they make. So, to me, she's not hiding. She's doing what is her right, in terms of, like, whatever she makes is for her. It's her money. She doesn't have to tell anyone how much money she makes. So I don't think that that's necessarily something that she's hiding, because hiding then kind of leads to, like, is she lying or being dishonest? And I don't think that in this example she's being any of that, right? And you know, helping him to kind of make ends meet by depositing money into the account. I think that over time he will develop a false sense of reality in terms of how much he really can take care of the family, because she has allowed for that money to be deposited into his account. He's thinking that he's actually maintaining when he's not. And so what happens over the long haul is that in turn, sometimes it's like, oh, I've been doing all of these things. Well, sometimes she may be building resentment and she doesn't realize that she's building resentment. And then he, on the other hand, could be like, well, you know, I'm handling all of this stuff, but no, you really aren't handling that stuff, because again, she's been depositing money into his account. So I think that sometimes in the effort to want to help, we also have to caution ourselves as women to not weaken the man, because what we want to do sometimes is we want to help, but sometimes we forget that there is strength in the struggle. And so in allowing for him to struggle, he is gaining his strength. And so when we always are trying to rush to the aid of the man, that's where you're not going to get the man to grow in his own self. And so it's kind of like, okay, great, you're helping your husband. There's a limit to it, that I think that she should caution even her own self, and then realize that everything that you do, even if it is good and charitable, there are still consequences of all your actions, good and bad. So that's something to think about.
You know, the other thing I thought about with the money, you know, when she says she secretly puts money into his account, that doesn't sound like, oh, I've done this once or twice. It sounds like it's kind of like a regular thing.
Right.
The first thing in my mind was, how can he not know that this is not his money in the account? Because it's like a regular thing. Like, you gotta be counting your dollars.
Right.
So in a way, she might think he don't know, but he knows what's going on. And he's probably like, thank you, I needed that.
And if he doesn't know, he don't need to be handling the bank account anyway. Okay.
That's good. Very good advice. Interesting scenario.
Right. Very interesting. Okay. Now we're going into relationship example number 3. So we have Keisha and Jamal, and they have been married for 12 years. Keisha has always dreamed of having children and raising them in her hometown of the ATL, right? Well, Keisha and Jamal moved to New York when they first got married so that Jamal could build his career as a stockbroker. Well, Jamal is doing very well and keeps promising to move to Atlanta once he makes enough money to start his own firm. Well, the problem is that the number keeps growing each year, and Keisha does not see an end in sight. So, like, yeah, first it was 50,000, then 75,000, whatever. And so Keisha is now 38 and feels her biological clock ticking.
Yes, ma'am.
What is your advice for Keisha? Should she give up on her dream and raise her children in New York to help her husband?
That's going to take compromise. That's going to take some compromise. You know, I think that the biggest thing is that you're pushing 38. So I don't know if they've been holding off on having children. That's what it sounds like. They've been intentionally holding off on having children until they move to Atlanta. And I think that that's, that's a danger. It's a dangerous thing if you're really wanting to have children, because, once you do decide to have children, it could be difficult, if all, I'm assuming maybe she's taking birth control. So, it can be difficult to have children. So now you're pushing that biological clock, back even further, or up even further. And so I think, of course, it's easy to say, hey, what's the husband's name? Jamal? Jamal? Jamal, okay, we just getting ready to go to Atlanta. This is what we said we're gonna do. We're gonna go ahead and do it. But I just think it's just a huge compromise. I really, Keisha, I'm stumped, my dear. But have those babies, and move them after 3 years. But just go ahead and have your children, and talk to your husband a little more. And then also, one thing I do want to mention is, I wonder if this was a goal of both of theirs. Was this talked about in the beginning, or was Jamal always actually wanting to raise the children in New York, which may be his hometown? So is this something Keisha, herself has always wanted to raise her children? So is there a common goal there, or is it just something that maybe he actually wants to have his children there in New York? So, yeah.
Well, I'm thinking 12 years is a long time to not have had, because it sounds like they don't have any children yet, to not have had children. So you're in a relationship. You've been in this relationship. You've been standing by your man and being supportive for 12 years. That's a long time. So 12 years, but now you're 38. I don't know. So my question is, can you absolutely just not have children in New York? Like, or, is it just like, I just can't have any children in New York, I have to be in Atlanta? And if so, it's like, where is this? How is the rest of the relationship? How much money, have you guys actually saved? It's like, you definitely gonna have to revisit some things. Was this in the contract? Do y'all need to revisit this contract? What exactly did it say? Because with contracts, you need to kind of revisit it as time goes by and make changes to it. But like she said, I just feel like 12 years is a long time, and it sounds like she's been a great backbone, a great support system, and she's got to put her foot down and make some decisions on what's gonna be what. Like, y'all, if you're gonna have children, and then like you said, Dia, you don't know if birth control is in effect, and we know that could take a toll on things too. Like, can you have children now? So if you've been doing something that long, so I don't know. What you think, Naima?
Well, I think that number one, we got to go back to the rights. So like a lot of these, even in these scenarios, it's really like, what are the rights of both the male and the female Islamically, as well as what was discussed and put in a contract. So it is a woman's right Islamically to be the one to decide on when to have children. It's the woman's right. It's not the man's. So, and this is why, again, I go back to what I was saying in the beginning, where, men feel like they have the right to dictate to women what they should do with their bodies, with their jobs, with their, you know what I'm saying, with their money. And you just have to know what your right is Islamically. And so if you take a right and you compromise your own right, that's unfortunate for yourself, right? Because again, you made that decision. But at some point, that's why it's difficult for Jamal to hey, now I want to have kids or whatever. And then just kind of thinking about when we're making these decisions, how practical is the decision? Yeah, I want to have kids in Hawaii. I want to be by the beach every day. But how practical is that? And then what's the purpose behind it? And I think that, again, all decisions that are usually made require time and or money and or people. So when you're making decisions, what's the time? How much time is it going to take, right? How much money is it going to take? Because it looks like Jamal keep making a whole bunch of money, but kids still not coming down the pipe, right? And then
I'll be saving for that.
Right. And who are the people it's affecting? And it's affecting both of them. So like I think that sometimes, again, when you make decisions like this, you got to think about the long term. So like yeah, I want to have my children in a certain state too. But if that's not practical, then again, we have to be able to look at and see how, you know, kind of when you're making a decision, throw up those what ifs. And if you
Mhm.
haven't done the what ifs, because what also happens is that people make these decisions and there is no compromise. There is just like, oh, if it's not this way, it's no way. And what ends up happening is then, of course, you start having those relationship conflicts that happen later in the marriage, but definitely not safe for a woman to continue to wait for a man to make a decision on a woman's body, and she knows what her body can and can't do. And again, it's her right as a Muslim woman to decide if she is going to bear the children. She
You
shouldn't
know,
be
one
sad.
thing that mhm. one thing that one thing that came to my mind about Atlanta was, where is she from? Is she from Atlanta?
Yeah, she's from
And
Atlanta.
is her support system in Atlanta, her home, her family. And so, just having children where you feel like you have help, if she feels like she'll be alone. But like you said, it's just kind of like, if you really want to get started on the process, what's the bottom line, and maybe at a certain time, maybe you might be able to move back, but to get started. But yeah, so she might be, I thought about it, so she might be looking for that support system too.
Yeah. But if you don't get it, that's still not a reason to wait to have children. Because again, sometimes that doesn't happen. It doesn't play in the cards where you can have that support system. So it's kind of like what you want and what you need. And then again, needs have to be met and what you want can be compromised. So y'all know I always say that all the time. It doesn't matter what it is. Needs must be met. What you want can be compromised. So
Right.
Like, you should write that down in the comments, Naima. In that quote.
okay.
Okay, I'm going to move on to the next relationship example. In this example, we have Sophia and Shahid, and they have been married for 15 years. They have 3 children and 2 grandchildren. Shahid has expressed an interest in marrying a second wife. Sophia has known for a long time that he desired this, but she never thought the day would come when he would actually pursue it. Sophia has expressed to Shahid that she has had 2 bad experiences with polygyny, once with her mother and stepfather, and again when her first husband remarried. Sophia believes that her heart cannot bear this again. She loves her husband. He's a great husband, father, and community member. She understands that he feels strongly about this and really wants to experience caring for 2 wives. He also desires more children, and Sophia is unable to carry more since her last son was born. What should Sophia do? What is your advice for Sister Sophia?
Hashtag been there, done that.
Hashtag this hits home.
Hashtag this.
Marinate on that one.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I don't know if everybody is listening to the family growth classes, Imam Suleiman, and I can't remember if this portion was actually shared. Maybe this was missed in the 4th series for the family growth class. But in that talk, there was a discussion about basically polygyny and how men are often saying that polygyny is their right, and it is not their right. It is an option. It is not mandatory. A right means that it is mandatory, and polygyny is not mandatory in Islam. And so when a woman says that she can't handle it, a man really needs to take that in consideration, because again, it's an option for the couple. And if she chooses not to participate, she can leave the relationship. And I know that we always hear this, oh, yeah. Women want to leave. Women always want to get a divorce. It depends upon really, it's a big factor in terms of like her relationship with her Lord and her spouse, right? And anything that is going to deter you from being able to focus on Allah, please Allah, be pleased by Allah, do those things. If it's going to totally take you off of your Islamic journey, you got to say no to it. Because again, there are women who can handle that, and there are women who can't. And just because a woman can't doesn't mean that she's not a good Muslim.
Right.
And if she can't, it also doesn't mean that she's not supporting her husband. Because again, she has to have the wherewithal to handle this as well. And if she can't handle it, it's something that he really needs to think about. And this is where wisdom comes in for the man. How wise are you? How well do you know your wife? You can't be all of a sudden, oh, you crazy. She wasn't crazy for all them other years y'all were married, right? Or all of a sudden, you're jealous or whatever the excuse may be. Now you can't turn into this passing judgment on her if it's not something that is in alignment with what you want to do. And I think that sometimes we often do that. We pass judgment on our spouses based on things that we want to do. If it's not in alignment with what we want to do, then we pass judgment on them, and we kind of start echoing to our friends and family so that our side can sound like it's more right, instead of just pulling back, taking ourselves internally, thinking about the love and the mercy, and saying, can I really, really, really handle this? Because again, that is very, very difficult. And I know I can just, personal experience. If you have friends and family that are not Muslim and they're pressuring you to say, why are you in a marriage? And, he has another wife, that doesn't make sense. And just all kind of stuff. It's very, very difficult if you don't, again, have the wherewithal. And literally, if you're not crazy, some people might go crazy. So, you just think about all of these things when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Right. So, that's important what you just said, Naima, because one of the things I thought about, she's already said she's had some experiences in the past. Her mother with her husband, and then her first husband. And so when we talk about traumatic experiences or triggers for different things that happen, and for him, it sounds like he's just saying that he feels strongly about wanting to experience two wives. What's the bigger reason? Like, you got to have with something more than just, you really want to do this because it's like, I really want to go see this movie, or I like to eat this type of food. Like, you got to have something more than that. And so I think the other thing is, if your wife is saying how she feels and she feels like she's not going to be able to bear it, if it's something that because we all know there's a lot more women than there is men, and we know that Allah has made it permissible for various reasons, and that it is something that's needed, and it can be done in the ways that positively, can't get that word out right, but impact the world and the community, right? And so we've just seen it so many times where it hasn't happened right, although we do have some few examples of where it is right. So, we don't want to just play it down and be like polygyny is just this thing but we have to really consider each other's feelings, and so maybe he might have a sit down conversation with her, and maybe even seek some consultation with how it can, how she's feeling, how, if it's going to work, this will be how, or, seek some professional counseling on whatever it is to kind of help her get to a point. And if she doesn't, you have to be, like you said, you have to be wise enough to know, is this worth my family being torn apart? Because that's what's going to happen if she's feeling like she just can't bear it emotionally, physically. Like, how is she going to be able to be there for you and be there for the children, and then emotionally she's just can't keep it together. Women have to go through enough already when you think about even just having a baby, being in a relationship that just monogamous relationship. So if you are already dealing with things on that level, and then you got to tie this other relationship in, to that, because it's not like everything is just separate. You're over here with that, and like you said, but some women can handle it. Some women are like, I don't want a man here every day in my face. Agree with that. You know what I'm saying? And so if you got, and then you got some women who may be the first wife and they're married and they're seeking another wife for their husband. So it's like all these different situations. So for some people it fits and it works, alhamdulillah. For some people, you just have to be, caring and compassionate, and not make it feel like it's just all about you. And like I said, for him, it sounds like he just wants to experience two wives. Like, I just want to see like how this feels. Like, I don't know,
What do you think, Leia?
Yeah, I think that both of you have given very, very good advice. Just, especially, coming from a standpoint of the man, and the woman, both showing love and mercy, in a marriage. And so, I think I love what Neff said about, maybe taking the wife to counseling, because this may even be something that she just needs to kind of work through, even if they don't pursue polygyny. But it seems like there's some wounds, that are there from her, past experiences. So I think, just for her own sake, being able to kind of get through that and get over that, and not get over it, but to work through it, and sometimes, some things are just our tests, and sometimes our tests come to us more than one time. Sometimes it's a multiple occurrence, and it keeps coming to us maybe for a reason. And so, I just pray for actually all of these couples. I pray for all of our marriages, pray that, we can continue to always put on the forefront, love and mercy. Love is not enough. Love is just one, aspect of a marriage. Being merciful to your spouse is extremely important. And then being respectful, both men and women, being respectful of one another's feelings, being respectful of one another's desires, because that's what we're talking about, right? We're talking about, having dreams and having goals. And so we want to respect our spouses, goals and aspirations. And at the same time, we want to be respectful of our own goals and aspirations, because I'm sure that there are men out there who do the same thing that we're cautioning women, not to do. I'm sure there are men who maybe, do more for their wives and really want their wives to be happy and overextend themselves, is probably far and few, but I'm sure they're out there.
Right.
That's just something to really consider and think about. But yeah, prayers for everyone, prayers for our marriage. And remember that, your sisters, your friends, your family, they can all give advice, but you're the one who's living in this marriage day to day. You're the one who has made this commitment before Allah, before God, to be in this relationship and to help one another, to nurture and grow into the best human beings possible. So at the end of the day, you have to search your own heart, search your own soul, speak to your spouse. Communication, we talk about this all the time on the show. Communication, compromise, those are two very, very important aspects of a marriage. Any last words, ladies, from you before we close out for our couples?
Oh man, I just wanted to before we finish this out, just making sure also, like, well, really this is for all the relationships, example relationships that we talked about today, is really just kind of thinking about, again, what is the end goal? And what I think that we've kind of become very, very used to is just kind of like going day to day without having an end goal. And when you have an end goal, and when you've laid the foundation, everything else is kind of like either a bonus, something that needs to be worked through, or whatever. So when you've laid the foundation of, like, our relationship is, we agree to these principles and morals of our relationship. We agree to these goals of our relationship. We agree that these are the non-negotiables in our relationship. We agree that, you know, we're working together for this in our relationship. And once those things are kind of like laid out, man, it is so easy, right? Because then again, if you have anything outside of those things that contribute to the relationship, then again, it's a bonus. But if you have any challenges within that, then it's always easier to go back and say, hey, let's refer back to what we originally stated. What is our foundation? What are our goals? What is the end game? Because again, you can talk to most people, they don't have an end game for their marriage. They just want to be married. And that's not doing anything for the community, for their individual selves, their children, legacy, none of that. So like, what is the end goal? Like, what are we really getting out of this? And how is this going to help us get to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the end? Right. So that's something to think about.
Yeah, so I think my last words would be, I always think about just prayer, your relationship with Allah. I think that helps a lot, just in marriages, keeping Allah first and foremost. So just keeping in prayer, not just praying by yourself, but praying together. I would advise couples to like pray together, pray out loud, pray, I'm thinking like, you can have a selfish prayer, which is nothing wrong with that, when it comes to specific things. And then also have those prayers where you just, you're really genuinely praying for each other, and your spirits, your soul can really feel that. Like, and then sometimes where you're in that prayer and your spouse hears that kind of gets to allow them to open up their minds and their heart to know, just how genuine you are, how you really want to see, the success in the relationship. And so, and then just speaking positive words, even outside of that, positive words and affirmations to each other. That's something that definitely would be beneficial and helpful in asking each other, like, how can I help? Since you guys kind of sit down and you talk about what you want, what this one's dreams and aspirations are. He knows what hers is. She knows what his is, kind of thing. And it's like, how can I help? That way, for the woman, she doesn't feel like I'm just constantly giving and doing. And when am I going to get mine? When is he going to see what it is that I want? I'm not talking about him right now, because most of the time it's us that are in that position. So it's like, when am I going to get mine? And then just being willing to sacrifice. I think that we are definitely, as women, willing to sacrifice, but we have to make sure that we put a limit to that. Don't overextend yourselves in ways, and it's okay to not do that. You have to be well, and you have to take care of yourselves as well. And then just pursue your passion, pursue what it is that you want to do. Don't lay it down and just, continue to step on it and be like, I'll get to this, and put it on the back burner. At some point you have to, and I know sometimes we have to like put certain things first in certain instances, but just make sure that you don't do that too long, and that you're able to pursue your passion and, move forward, because you're going to be happy. And if you're happy, everybody else is going to be happy in the house.
Yeah. If mama's happy, then everybody's happy, right?
Yes. Alhamdulillah.
Wonderful, wonderful show, ladies. And I pray that, our talk and our advice has, maybe helped someone or touched someone. And, that's what we're all here for, right? That's what the sisterhood is all about. It's about helping one another, to reach our goals and our aspirations.
And have goals and aspirations, women. Have goals and
write them down. Write down. Yeah, I just want to say again, I just want to reiterate, we kind of talked about it in the beginning, that these are some made up stories, and they may touch home for some people. You did an excellent job. I love it, because it's like, I just felt like I was reading a book when I was reading the script. I was like, this is awesome. And it's just so real that, we always can like just reach out one way or the other, whether it's somebody we heard of or just, it's just so real. These are things that real people and real places are dealing with. And we just pray for you all. We pray for success of ourselves, our marriages, our community, and the world, inshallah.
And I'm sorry, and don't forget that there is still a community, like supporting your spouse. Get a collective of women that are also married, so that when if you need support with your children, that you all can do it as a collective of women. The sisterhood is there for a reason. Like, use that as your support. Okay, I can't cook this week. One person cook dinner for 3 or 4 different families.
Yes.
You all supporting each other, you can get to your goals and aspirations, and no one has to be left out, including your husband. So definitely make sure that we're doing lifting up the sisterhood and using it to our advantage.
That's great. Queens raise queens.
Okay.
All right, ladies. So we really enjoyed this show. We look forward to seeing everyone next week on Rock the Crown. We have a wonderful special second edition of Living the International Lifestyle. So please join us, tune in, like us on Facebook, subscribe on YouTube, and follow us on Instagram.
Yes. All right, Crown Nation, inshallah. We will see you all next week.
Assalamu alaikum.